Hello, good
Hi,
evening. Finally, it worked.
sorry.
Perfect.
Hi, Marco. How are you doing?
Very well. How are you doing?
I'm also good, thank you.
Fantastic. So I'm just going to give a very brief introduction of what we're going to do so that everyone who just joined us is on the same page. We will be talking about how to find jobs or how to find the traineeships and gain a first experience in the EU universe. And we're always talking on this channel about what you can do to make an impact, reach out to members of parliament, be active in campaigns, etc. But why not try to shape EU policies of the future yourself? This is exactly what we try to, tell you today. How can you do that? How can you gain that first experience? Without further ado, please introduce yourself to the world. Tell them who you are, and then we can get right into it.
Sure. Hello, everyone. So I'm Sevim. I am from the Netherlands/Germany, and I'm working at the European Commission as a policy officer at the moment in the Department of Energy. More specifically in the unit of the internal energy market. So when we're thinking of the electricity and gas market, rising electricity prices, it's basically me and my team behind the Commission, the big Commission institution working on that part. But just to quickly tell about my background and how I landed in the institutions. I'm an engineer by background, so I did my bachelor's in the Netherlands at the University of Twente, where I studied mechanical engineering and specialized in my master's in energy systems. So it was still very heavily engineering focused, but also, I got the socio-political market perspective in as well. And the moment, I decided, okay, let's check out what the institutions are looking like. I mean, it's kind of an uncommon path, I guess, for an engineer with my background to step into institutions. So I'm really happy to talk about the role of the background from that perspective a little bit more as well. But I did my Bluebook traineeship, so it's a 5-month traineeship. I worked for a smart renovation company afterwards for a little bit, and was asked to join the Commission again afterwards. So now I'm a full-time policy officer, and really happy to talk about my experience and share and make it a little bit more transparent of how to step into that bubble, because it's not always the most transparent thing to do.
Yeah, fantastic. I fully agree. It's not that easy, especially if you have no people in your friend circle who have done things like that. So we really hope that this is going to be helpful for some of you. I would say, since you're working at the Commission, we start with the Commission and how to get into that. You mentioned the Bluebook traineeship. Could you very briefly explain to people what the Bluebook traineeship is? And then we're going to get into some tips for applications.
Sure. So the Bluebook traineeship is this 5-month program. So for me, for example, was a perfect opportunity to figure, is that something where I can imagine, working in or not? But obviously, when we talk about the Commission, we're talking about 33,000 people working in it with various types of departments, which is ranging from energy, climate, and environment. So that's my background. Budget and competition, the space, defense. So it's a huge institution, right, with many departments. So there's this variety from that. And the Bluebook basically gives you an introduction into that world. You can give preferences of free and basically follow this process where you submit your application via this form on the website, and are basically following up with eventually an interview and eventually getting the program. I think that would be like the overall process. So it's a compensated traineeship/internship, and starting. I mean, do you want?
I can tell you when it starts. Yeah, I can just
Yeah.
jump in a little. So just to give you some more hard facts.
Exactly.
There are, as far as I know, that's what I just read earlier as well. There are 1,300 spots per year for the Bluebook traineeship in total. It's compensated, as you said, with 1,229 euros per month, 5 months long. You can apply twice per year. One period is in January, one is in July, and it starts both in March and in October. And you start in parallel with the people who do the internship at the parliament, but we're going to get into that later. First of all, it's important because some of the people watching might not be familiar with this. The European Commission consists of different DGs, which stands for Directorate Generals, and they all tackle a different topic. For example, energy, you also have some dealing with security questions, law questions, etc. So depending on your own background, on your own study background, you will be able, if you get accepted, to find a traineeship in one of these different DGs. And as you said, there are three different preferences that you can make basically when you apply for that traineeship. Can you walk us very briefly through the process of how the application looks like and what people should pay attention to when they apply? Because I think this is the most important.
Exactly. So I would like to start off with one of the most transparent things in this entire process, which is how does the other side work? You know, how do people look over these applications, and what's the process from the Commission side when it comes to following this process? And for example, I got the biggest myth buster. I thought it's an automatic system looking over these thousands and thousands of applications that the Commission is receiving per entry. But no, it's actually Commission officials who volunteer to look over these applications. So you have to imagine you're submitting this form, which consists of, you know, your CV. It has a couple of text boxes on your motivation. So you don't have a lot of space. I'll come to a couple of tips in a second. But it's basically Commission officials looking over these applications, and based on a proper point system, giving points to these specific points. So to these specific entries, let me say. Think of languages, for example. You don't get any points for mother languages, but if you have any additional languages that you speak, in my case, it would be Dutch and I put as additional languages, I got 2 extra points for it. And it follows with a couple of things, like awards, for example, or if you scored exceptionally well grades in your studies, put all these things down, it matters. But a very, very important part, and that's where a lot of people actually get kicked out, is the second phase, which is supplying the documents. So if you pass the first stage, which is, as I said, like people look over your application, they give the points according to, you know, like whether it matches what the Commission is looking for. If you get that, you get a notification. It's like, hey, you're pre-selected. Perfect. Pre-selected, submit your documents to move to the next stage. And a lot of people fall out here because they cannot provide any supporting documentation. So on the website, it gives all more clearly like where you need supporting documentation. But for example, I heard from a colleague who's looking over these applications recently that someone did a typo in putting down their birth date and got kicked out because of that, because it didn't match documentation. Exactly. So do a spell checking and look over all the numbers. It could have easily happened with me because I forgot to put in my second name, for example. It's stuff like that might be coming in, but especially with languages, if you're speaking a language but cannot provide any supporting documentation for it, then you're kicked out. So it's really, really harsh during that procedure, and please watch out. I think that's the biggest thing that I can give on that part.
A brief question, because there are 3 different preferences you can make. Yes. Are these preferences reflecting any hierarchy? So when you put a preference 1, is that also weighted as more important than the other 2, or are they all equal?
It's not weighted as more important. The rule where these preferences come in is if 2 of the DGs want you as an applicant, then number 1 gets a preference.
Okay.
So, for example, what happened in my case is that I put DG Energy before DG Klima, and I got calls from both of these units for an interview, but the project from DG Klima was way nicer than the one from DG ENER. So I was crossing my fingers that DG ENER is not gonna put me through, because I would have worked on, I don't know, labeling products. I was really not interested in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but so that's where it matters. That's where it matters, where you how you put down the preference. And regarding that point specifically, I really advise people who are interested in general to do their research on the different departments, on the different DGs really, really properly, and eventually tailor their application on like the motivation boxes, on motivation text boxes, also based on those DGs, because I've seen multiple of my colleagues, as I said, working on it, and they really read through those motivation parts, and it matters so much once you pass through this initial selection procedure, and departments are basically looking for, you know, over these different applications. It really matters what you put down, because that can be like a decisive factor for you know, for the unit, for the team eventually picking you.
Yeah, so as a preparation tip, what I would advise as well, you should definitely think about where you want to work. Look at the commission website, have a look at the different DGs, and then decide what sounds interesting to you, what doesn't, and then make a list yourself. And I would very highly recommend that you look on the specific DG's website to see what they have been working on in the past months or so that you can also talk about it in your info box and maybe add your previous experience and make a link to that and show how what you have done before is actually connected to what they are doing right now, because that would make you a more suitable candidate for them. And that is something that I would like to say. I think we can move on to the parliament, unless you want to say something else about the commission.
Just one quick thing, because it's always a highly debated point among Bluebook trainee applicants, and that is that once you pass through that initial application phase, you're in this book basically where all the DGs have access to. So it's this immense ocean basically for the departments. So I heard from many trainees that they do the lobbying part. So I would like to give, like, you know, spend 2 minutes on that very quickly.
Yeah.
So what does it mean, lobbying for the team or for the DG of your interest? A lot of people send an email to the team of their interest where, you know, say, hey, I'm a Bluebook, I'm in the part, like you can, and I'm really interested working together with your team. So it works and it doesn't work. It really depends on the team. So there is no like silver bullet points success in this regard. Some units see that as like a total no-go. For the other units, it really works well, because you kind of get on the agenda of the team, and that's something like you somehow need to be visible, and that's the biggest advice that I can give, because it's thousands of applicants and thousands of people that are getting through, but only is very little amount making it to actually getting an offer. So that's one thing, sending emails. What I personally did is I attended events that were organized by the DG. So for example, DG Energy had this Sustainable Energy Week event where I attended the online, so it was all online for me, by the way. I attended the online event and I looked through the participant list, and I was, you know, searching for policy officers. And for every policy officer that I spotted, I dropped them a quick message being like, hey, are you available for a 5-minute call? And I called with 4 policy officers, of which one of them were extremely useful and gave me extremely useful tips. So make use of the opportunities that are in front of your nose, basically. And checking the DG's websites, that's one thing. Following them on Twitter is another really good thing. Following their newsletters are really useful and really amazingly put together. One of the good things they do when it comes to communication, I would say. So just that quickly to the lobbying part of getting on the agenda of the teams and visible.
I can add something to that very briefly before we move on to the next topic. So what I do very often, actually, both on Twitter and on Instagram, when a certain topic in the EU in the EU universe interests me, I look at who the person calling the shots is, essentially, and then I try to find them on Twitter, on Instagram, and send them messages with questions, and you would be surprised how often they actually respond to you. Or you can do the same on LinkedIn, or just if they have none of that, try to look them up and then find their email address, because the EU usually provides these as well, and just send them a question, and either them or someone from the team will eventually get back to you. And it's very good to have your name around, because if they look through applications and they recognize your name again, they will see, okay, this is a person who's very interested, who's already shown interest before, so it's definitely a plus point for you. Then I would say, for the sake of time, let's move to the Parliament internships. There are two that we're going to cover. The one is the Schuman internship, which is an internship directly where you're directly employed by the Parliament. So you're going to be working in three different areas: either journalism, so communication; second, more general, in the different secretariats and the different committees that the Parliament has; and the third one is in the Sakharov Prize, which is related to human rights. So these are the three different areas where you can work. It's also 5 months long. There are around 600 places per year. The compensation is the same as for the commission, around 1,300 euros, and you can apply it twice per year as well. Don't worry, by the way, all of this will be put out in a more detailed post tomorrow, so you don't have to write all of this down. You will see it tomorrow or the day after. And the second internship we're going to talk about in the Parliament is an internship for a member of the European Parliament, because that is something else. Should I go into the member of the European Parliament internship first, or do you want to say something before?
I think it would be great if you would start off with the MEP one.
Okay, so I did an internship with a member of the European Parliament in 2018. And the way that I found out about it is I went to a Europe Direct Info Center, EDIC. You can find these in every single member state, even if they're not in your city. They will have one in the capital, and the people there are very, very friendly in my experience, because I've had contacts with them in different countries already. What I did is I just asked them if they could give me a list of all the members of European Parliament from my region and also from the country, so that I can have a look at what they're doing. They did this. So I looked through the list of the different MEPs that interest me, that I align with in terms of values, etc. And I just checked their website to see if they have any openings, basically. And I reached out to them personally, both via Twitter, via email, and just asked. Sometimes I couldn't find information on the website, so I just asked them directly if there is an opening or not, so that I would not write a long application for nothing. And then I applied to, I think it was 6 in total. Was accepted then by one who I worked with. And what I can give you as some advice how to build your application: definitely be very, very well informed what the Member of Parliament is working on. So if you go on the Member of European Parliament site and just have a look through the committee work, you will see a list of everything that they have been doing in the past month. So that is speeches in the committee, that is specific proposals that they have submitted, that is things that they are saying publicly on Twitter or on other social media platforms. Look through that, and in your application, definitely pick up some of these points, so that the people reading the applications know that you are entrusted with the subject matter. So, for example, the person I was working with was active in the Environment and Transport Committee. So I looked at the things that they did in this regard and just referenced certain topics. So I was, for example, referencing a speech that they have given about, in my case, it was electromobility, and just spoke about how I did something in the past that is linked to that and how I would like to contribute and expand that knowledge, basically. Just make sure in the application that your motivation shines through. Of course, why do you want to do this? What is your idea of Europe? What do you want to contribute? But B, definitely bring them like the hard facts. So speak about your language skills, speak about previous work experience, and show them that what the MEP is working with is connected to your previous experience, and that you can contribute something. Because you will have a lot of competition from people who already have a lot of experience in that field. And if you don't show yours, it will be very difficult for them to take you, because they will think, okay, this person here has clearly said, I have worked with electromobility in XYZ firm, I did this and that. So they will have a preference. And if you want to do the Schuman traineeship in the European Parliament, so as I told you, 3 different things you can do: the journalist one, the human rights one, the more general one. Decide what you prefer, and then try to build your application accordingly. So if it's something related to human rights, make sure to include any and all experiences you have in that regard, whether that is being active in your school as a school representative, whether that is working with, say, refugees or being involved in any environmental projects, whatever, make sure that it's something connected to the topic. If it's something related to journalism, of course, include whatever you can include in this field. And try to, and this is another very important advice, I would say, try to use a lot of buzzwords in your application. So look at what they are looking for in the job description, because they will tell you, we want someone who is informed in this and this field, and try to basically use these words. And then after you've used them, explain how your previous experience and how your vision links to whatever they are looking for. Because then you're basically just providing them with a checked to-do list, and then they can decide whether you're eligible or not. And this sounds like a lot of work, I know. And this sounds also like, oh God, I haven't ticked off all the to-do lists. What will I do? Don't worry about that. Of course, no one can expect that you have done every single thing that they demand. That's not a problem. It's just about showing that you have a strong connection to the subject, and you're able to fill in the gaps that you don't know yet, and you're able to grow basically in that field. That's a very important point. So don't be afraid, don't shy away, because I definitely did not know all of the things that I ended up doing.
And Marco, I wish I would knew all the things that you were saying. This is gold advice, really, because I was trying to, get into that MEP, like this member of European Parliament jungle as well, but it's incredibly difficult. So I think you put it down really in the steps that people should follow. So really, rewatch this video if you're interested, because I gave up, seriously. Like it was such a big jungle that I didn't know what to do. I gave up at some point. I didn't follow the MEP idea through. So it's really, really important what you're saying. And just to stress once more, the pitch that you're basically providing in that motivation letter, or like in these little Twitter messages that you're sending to these people, be clear on the value that you're providing to the team, and make that really, really obvious, because people are looking for it very quickly. So I wouldn't be able to add more to what you're saying, Marco. I just would like to stress that that's exactly it. Like if you follow these steps, it's gonna be at least way more closer than where I have been when looking for.
Another thing I would just like to add, because I have gotten the question in the past, you do not need to be a member of the party of the MEP. I've personally never been in any political party, and I still managed to get a traineeship there. Of course, it can help. I'm not going to say that it doesn't, because if you're inside the party, you will know people. So maybe there has been some previous contact or so, and it is definitely seen as positive for someone, but it is not a must. And I personally managed to get in there without being a party member. So just keep that in mind, and don't be afraid. But the number one thing I would like to stress is go to the European Direct Info Center, have a look at the MEPs in your region, and then do some very, very intense research on them. So just Google them, go through the social media accounts, look on the website of the European Parliament where they are located, and just scroll down, and then you will get a timeline of the things that they have been working on, and just include and reference that in your application. And another thing, that is something related to the Schuman internship, and I think the same goes for the Bluebook traineeship as well. Definitely be confident in your skills. So make sure that if you speak about your language skill, give an example where you use the language, whether that is in a specific research seminar, in a previous job or so, but give concrete examples of how you have used that language, and make sure that it is something that you can reference if asked, because as you were saying before, you might have to supply, or no, you have to supply documents. So make sure that you have these documents in order, and reference things that can be backed up by specific evidence, because it will definitely boost your chances of finding a traineeship.
So shortly about the Schuman, should I quickly dive into that one?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
All right. So back when I was applying for the institutions, I applied for both the Bluebook and the Schuman. I was going for the generalist one of the three, and it's definitely different than the Bluebook, because what you basically have an overview of all the positions already, and you can apply immediately. So it's way more targeted, and you can be way more targeted with your motivation letter as well. And that's actually also what you need to send in. So a CV and a motivation letter, and that's basically it about the about the Schuman traineeship unless like specific documents or specific skills are required. And that's the beauty of the Schuman traineeship, I would say. You basically, like, the departments or the teams looking for trainees, they're really specific already in what they're looking for. So that's super useful for you to figure, hey, that's something what I want to do or not, and to also target your motivation letter as such. So what happened for me is I applied for a strategy unit of a DG in the parliament. I'm not even sure which DG anymore because, you know, it was like a jungle for me as
Yeah.
a non-EU person. And what happened is that I received an email and we had a FaceTime call actually. And she asked me a lot of motivational questions and, you know, the classical. Sorry, here we go.
No worries.
So she asked me a bunch of motivational questions. And as you said, and I guess that's what helped me in that interview as well, I was always referring to situations and was giving, you know, bits and pieces of my memories of experience, so anecdotes basically. And that's really interesting if you tell these stories. So prepare a couple of, and there are a bunch of resources online for, you know, like these situational interview questions or how to do that really, really usefully. But I can stress that. But because I'm an engineer, she asked me at some point, like, hey, do you have any EU knowledge? Like, do you know how the institutions work? And something that helped me, which I did a couple of weeks before, is the Model European Parliament. I just participated in it to get to know a little bit more about, you know, policy creation processes and these type of things. As I said, a totally new world to me, which helped me because it was like, okay, so you do know, like you have some experience. And I was like, okay, you know, so it really, really helpful. So like model European parliaments, model United Nations or whatever, like you can give that bits of pieces of experience there. And then she asked me one question and I wasn't prepared for it. She says, like, look, I have a bunch of applicants still that I'm really interested in. They're all have a background in economics, political sciences, European studies, similar. It's like, why should I take you? And I think that's a question that we all need to prepare for. Now I'm diving off a bit, just to mention the importance of diversity, not only from background, like not only from ethnicity, but also background, since this expertise is also required. So, and I actually ended up getting the Schuman traineeship as well. I went for the Bluebook one, but guys, like just, I mean, obviously cool statistics right now from my perspective, but what happened is like I rejected that, but she actually ended up, the person was interviewing me, she ended up referring me to a company, which was then like the smart renovation company that I ended up working for. So even though I didn't take up the position and, you know, like the only thing that I'm trying to say is you never know what kind of connections or opportunities might turn up. So really make full use of all these things, because I stayed in touch with her a couple of times afterwards, you know, asking like, how's it going and and make use of these personal connections, because especially in the Brussels, European bubble, whatever, those type of things come in very, very handy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, especially if you look at some of the people that I have interviewed on our channel. This has all come through that, basically through knowing people that know people or through reaching out myself. So don't be shy at all to send messages, to ask for help. Of course, always be respectful, be kind, and many times you will get help, because a lot of people are actually willing to provide their knowledge and help you with it. One thing that I wanted to add, because you were speaking about the interviews, I realized we didn't talk about the interview situation a lot yet. One thing that I can definitely recommend is that you also tell them about the research process in trying to get this internship, because that's something that I got a lot of positive feedback for that. I was telling them that I looked through all of the different committee work, I was watching speeches, I scrolled through social media, and as I was telling this story, I was referencing certain things and said, this stood out to me, and this was something that convinced me to basically want to work with a member of parliament, because you have to see it as a two-way street as well. On the one hand, they want something from you, but on the other hand, they also have to provide something for you. So make sure that you tell them what you are doing here or there. That is something that is inspiring to me. That's a reason for me to want to work with you. And it will definitely be well liked if you walk them through the process, because then they will understand, okay, this person was actually invested in whatever I'm working on. Just another quick point. How much time do you have left? Because I would say we can go through the council and the other representation stuff pretty quickly, and then maybe open for a few minutes of Q&A.
Sure, let's do that.
Okay, so just to walk briefly through the council, I think the advice that we gave you for both commission and parliament are equally applicable to the council. Let me just give you some very brief hard facts. So there's 100 paid internships. There are 20 unpaid, which I very much disagree with, but that's a thing that will hopefully change in the future. 20 unpaid compulsory ones, meaning that your degree requires you to do an internship. And there are 6 paid ones for disabled people. So 126 in total, 106 of which are paid. Also 5 months long, 2 application deadlines, February and September. And starting points are in the 1st of February and 1st of September. Those that are paid are equal to the council and to the commission and the parliament salaries, around 1,300. And I just spoke to a friend 1 hour ago who did such a council traineeship 2 years ago, and I just want to convey to you what he told me. So he told me that a lot of the jobs there are quite research heavy, of course. So you will be writing a lot of reports, reading a lot of data. You will have to interact in different languages very often. So the requirement is to be fluent in 1 EU working language. EU working languages are English, French, and German. But the more you're fluent in, the better for your application, obviously. So try to underline that point very strongly and give references. He said that he was talking about his previous research and like academic papers he wrote and things like that. So that's from my side for the council. Maybe you want to add something too. I don't know.
So it's a little bit. I actually just met a woman who did not a council traineeship, but Committee of the Regions traineeship, which we never talk about. So I'm just going to drop it here. But it's an opportunity basically to be more involved in the counterbalance of, you know, like the institutions and the different kinds of regions where the Committee of the Regions put their perspective and advocacy basically into the institutional work. But like, just a question also to you, Marco, but yeah, like we have all these institutional things now, like all these different institutional opportunities. Mm-hmm. How, maybe in 2 sentences, would you quickly differentiate these 4 opportunities or 3 opportunities, let's say? Yeah. So you have to understand what each institution does in order to answer that. So the European Parliament is what we vote for in the European election. So that is what directly represents us citizens. The European Council is the institution that represents the heads of government and the government of each member state. So it is basically a mix between the different countries' governments trying to reach a conclusion in order for legislation in their country. And for the Commission, I would actually give the word to you since you work there. So you can just briefly tell the audience what the Commission does. So it's a policy creation where we formulate the policies, which are then being sent over to the Parliament and the Council to decide upon. So my main motivation to go for the Commission traineeship and not for Parliament was that I'm very much a data-driven person, and I just want to discover the world of policy creation in the Commission, which is very much data-based and one of the best ones. OECD says that in the world, but one of the policy creation processes in the world. So I was like, okay, let me get a touch of that and see what it's all about. And one quick myth busting that I would like to do for all the institutions is, I remember my family was driving me over to Brussels, and my dad was sitting in the car and he's like, oh, the bureaucrat world's amazing. It's going to be so chill and so relaxed, like working from 10 to 4, amazing. So that was the expectation that I was coming into this world. And I was totally surprised how smart and smart and dedicated, hardworking these people are. They're really, really trying to do their best. It's not often very visible on the 50,000 people in total working for the institutions. Are totally not visible at all, but they're really hardworking experts doing a great job in trying to manage Europe, basically. So there's a bunch that all of us can learn from them, but also a great role that we as a youth or young professionals represent. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more, and that's something that doesn't really shine through at all. The only thing we see mostly is the negative headlines, of which there are many, but there's so many great things happening. You will learn a lot from people who are only known in the background of things, who are never visible. So I couldn't agree more. Of course, not everything's perfect like anywhere else, but there's a lot of very, very educated, well-read, motivated people who definitely want to make well, this continent, Europe, and both the countries in the European Union and the ones outside of it better. So keep that in mind. It's definitely worth doing. Now, would very briefly move to the last part of the presentation before we hopefully have a few minutes left for the Q&A, namely, what types of internships, traineeships can you do outside of the EU bubble? So we just talked about the main institutions. By the way, there are also other EU jobs like other agencies, and you can look for them online. If you have a specific agency in mind, just Google it and look for openings. But if you're at that stage, you will probably already know a little about it, so you will find that. What other jobs are there? So you can work for your regional representation in the EU, for example. I'm from Bavaria, the southern state in Germany, and Bavaria has its own representation in Brussels that is lobbying the EU institutions for its own purposes, very successfully, I have to say.
wow.
Yeah, very, very successfully. So you have them, but you could also work for an embassy. My girlfriend's currently, I don't know if she's still watching or not. I saw her earlier. She's working for an embassy right now. You could do that. You can also work for a union, trade union. You can work for other interest representations, NGOs, nonprofit organizations, but of course also for any firm. Whether, let's say you're interested in, I'm not going to do any name dropping, but just choose any company that you like. And if you think that you would want to see how they influence the political level, just check their job openings in Brussels and just apply there. But I can definitely recommend looking into this as well, because people think that in order to get a foot into the EU, the only thing that you can do is basically work for the institutions directly, but not at all. You can definitely work for nation state representations, regional representations. You can also work for, well, as I said, different firms, NGOs, NPOs, and this will help you down the line a lot if you want to stay in this EU bubble. But that is something that we cannot give you a general advice on. In terms of application, just use what we said before. That's something that you need to know yourself, basically. So if you have a specific interest in any of the things that I mentioned, just look them up, look for their vacancies. And if you don't find anything, don't be shy to just send an email. That's what I do very often. If I don't find something on the website, I'm just directly asking people, hey, I couldn't find anything, but is there maybe a chance that you have some presence in Brussels, in Strasbourg, in Luxembourg, wherever, that is connected to EU lobbying? And you would be surprised how often these opportunities exist without being published on the website. So just shoot them an email, just call, send them a message on social media, whatever. If you never try, you never know.
I think 10 out of 10. I wouldn't have anything to add to this. I mean, the only thing would be extremely exciting opportunities. I mean, from the people that I know who've gone through these experiences, it's very, very exciting fields and exciting insights that you actually get, and very valuable insights as well. So even though it's a traineeship, I know for many companies, especially like also outside the Brussels bubble, it's being considered as extremely valuable. Just a traineeship, just a simple 5 month or 6 months or 1 year traineeship in one of these opportunities can be an extremely valuable addition to you to present yourself, because you've seen something a bit more closer than that's usually the case for applicants. So it definitely pushes you on, definitely adds value to your professional appearance as well.
Yeah, for sure. And since we're a little bit tight on schedule and already a bit over our planned time, I would say let's open the floor for some questions. And if we see that there's a strong urge for us to do this again, I'm sure that we will find another time in the future to answer some more of your questions. But yeah, just let us know if there is anything. If not, we will just close it, save the video so you can rewatch it if necessary. And yeah, let's see what you guys have to say. So the floor is all yours. Meanwhile, while you guys are formulating questions, one very important information: if you want to do the Schuman traineeship, the application deadline is at the end of this month. So if you want to do that, definitely look into it, prepare your documents, and make sure to send it in the next 13 or 12 days before the deadline is over. So that's just one of the most urgent things on the horizon.
Exactly. And just to stress it again, Marco prepared an extremely nice post and an entire overview of all these different opportunities, which will be shared soon, I reckon. And it provides a perfect overview of all these different opportunities and how to go about researching and looking for as well.
Okay, we are getting a few questions, and now I see. Let's start from top. Svenja asked, would you advise to do an internship after your bachelor's already, or wait until you finished your master's? Maybe you want to take this question.
So give it a shot regardless, I would say. For example, me, I applied after my bachelor's and after my master's as well. And it's, you know, for me, it was like weighing different opportunities basically, because, you know, then I was deciding. But I would say regardless, just give it a shot, because it never hurts to do both.
Yeah, I would agree. And I know a lot of people who did both, actually. I personally did it after the bachelor degree, but then I applied again for some stuff after my first master's degree, and no regrets at all. I think it just depends where you are, because maybe you do an internship, then you do a master, and you already get some job offer or so, and you end up not wanting to or not needing to do it. So it just depends on your course, basically. Okay, another question. I'm a 17-year-old French student. What would be the best courses to follow? I guess that just depends on your own interest. Just try to think what kind of stuff if you are interested in the political field, you don't have to study political science to get involved. If you are, for example, interested in environmental stuff, then study something that is related to that. Study something technological, study something that's related to sustainability. I don't know. If you're more interested in human rights, maybe study something with a more social background. Or, of course, you can just study something like law if you're interested in questions of rule of law, justice, etc. So just look at your own interests and then try to build your academic career accordingly.
And just to add, diversity unites us, and especially in a context like Europe, diversity matters a lot, and representation matters a lot. So I have friends, you know, in institutions that have done theater studies, for example, and are working on extremely valuable and really, really interesting topics. So it's a matter of your self-development, how you go about it, but follow your interest. And if you're motivated and, you know how to put your skills together and know what you want to explore, I think that's a perfect way to start.
Yeah. And then another question, what set of technical skills is commonly required for the traineeships? Are the expectations different following each applicant's background, meaning diplomas, work experience, etc.? Maybe you want to talk about the technical skills.
Sure. It's a really, really good question, actually. So when I started my traineeship, I was working on a fund, and it was basically like more project management skills that were required by me, data analysis skills. But now I'm really on the legal side. So you know, I'm looking on a lot of court cases, for example. And the thing is, as long as you have an open mindset and you're affiliate and like getting into something very quickly, you'll be recognized for that. As I said, I have no expertise in legal stuff, but in expertise in the topics that they're talking about. So you basically build it up as you go, and it's a perfect environment to also build up these skill sets.
Yeah, I wouldn't add anything to it. I think you answered it all. One question from Nico. What's the best way to do the lobby emails for your preferred DGs? Since you're working in a DGs, how would you like to be lobbied? Tell the world.
So honesty is very important. I've seen cases where people were sending, you know, emails to a lot of units at the same time. That's you know, the different units and the different teams talk to each other, so that's a total no-go. So pick your units that you want to get into very carefully. But Marco gave a huge set of opportunities to reach out to people, attending events, like make yourself visible and show that you're interested. that's a key, I would say, when it comes to these lobby emails.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, anyone who said thank you for the answers, we thank you for watching. It's always fun to have a lot of interested people in these issues. So we wouldn't be doing it if you weren't interested. So thank you. Do we have any other question? I think that's it for now. Yeah, and we're already nearly at an hour. So I would say we close it now. And if there are any other questions, make sure to send us a message. Or also, oh, this is the most important thing, actually, I forgot to mention. Please, please, please all follow Sevim. She has her own Instagram account where she's also talking about EU stuff. I will definitely link it in the story after this live, but she's already tagged in the stories I uploaded. So just go on the stories, click on her profile and make sure to follow, because you will get infos there that you will not find here. And I think Sevim would also be happy if you send her a message to get back to you. Of course, the commission life is busy, so it might take a while, but just send a message. And if she can help, I guess it will be with pleasure. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
Exactly. One of the most important things is to make, you know, institutions a little bit more accessible. And Marco, you're doing an immense, important, and very big chunk of that work. So really, really big thanks. And just reach out, you know, like, have your questions. It's one of the key things that you can do. So and we're both very much available for that. So if you have any questions or anything similar, would like some help or whatever, we both are really, really happy to help and get some more youth involvement into these institutions. Gosh.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's the main reason why we're doing this. And please, anyone who's interested, please, 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 I am begging you, take the chance and get into the institution, because the whole reason why we are here as two young people interested in EU stuff, we want to make it better and make it more representative and make sure that our ideas are reflected more, because I do not want to be governed by people who are 50, 60 years older than me every single day. So please, please, please make sure that you get in there. We have, well, tried to do it, as Sevim has added. I'm also still involved in this whole EU sphere through other projects, but it would be great if more of us did it, so we can actually make an impact as young people.
And it's an immense amount of impact that the institutions have. So and youth is way too underrepresented. So all of you play an extremely important role in this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be it for today. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate you talking to us and giving your insights from the professional perspective. And if you are interested, send us a message. Maybe we will do another live talking about some other things that are also connected to the EU working world in the future. But just let us know, and it would be with pleasure to organize something like this again.
Thank you, Marco, for hosting. It's been truly a pleasure. Way over time, but really interesting talked about, I would say, and extremely valuable tips that you gave. So yeah, I'm really, really happy. So thanks a lot for everyone listening.
Okay. Bye, guys. See you. Have a very nice evening. Ciao.